Hey there folks, I'm Dan with TheWindowDog.com. Today we're going to take a look at this beautiful Simonton 5500 Reflections window. We're going to look at the inside, the outside, the upsides and the downsides, and at the end we're going to throw it off the table and see if it bounces. Get ready for fun! So here we have the Simonton 5500 Reflections window. This is one of the most popular double hung windows in the Simonton replacement window line. It's a popular model because it's sort of in the middle of the lineup. It's not too expensive, it's not too cheap. And let's take a look at some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages. As you first get looking at it, you'll notice right off the bat you get a real thick frame and sash here. The dimension from the edge of the window to the edge of the glass is large. It's also the same in the bottom. Look how thick this is from the sill to the bottom of the glass. What that means is you're going to lose some glass area relative to your current windows, most likely. You can check this out by measuring the dimension on your current windows, see how it compares to this puppy, but I bet you it's going to be quite a bit different. There are models out there that have thinner sashes and frames, which will get you a little bit more light, so that's something to keep an eye out for. Now this may not matter so much if you have a relatively newer house. Will typically have larger windows, where if you lose a half an inch or an inch on each side, maybe you don't even notice. Where a smaller house will typically, or an older house I should say, will typically have smaller windows, and an inch would be a larger percentage of your total. You might notice the difference even more, and you might not be too happy with the results. So something to keep an eye out for. Another feature to look at here is something I bet you lunch you would never notice in a million years if I didn't point it out to you, but some manufacturers make a big deal out of it, so we figure we might as well show you. What this window has is what they call equal sight lines, where the vertical line here at the edge of the glass lines up with the line here at the top. So this forms one continuous line up and down. Most old wood windows would have that, and they try to put it on the vinyl windows to match that traditional look. The trick is you could look at other models. We'll typically have the bottom sash will be a little bit bigger than the top sash. But like I said, you'd probably never notice. So if you're not going to notice, then it's not really any better. But it's up to you. If that kind of thing makes you happy, keep an eye out for it. And as we're looking at this puppy, another thing you'll notice is you've got these inverted welds on the sashes. The weld is at the corner where this piece of vinyl and this piece of vinyl are joined together at the factory. The way they do that, the way they weld that, is not with a traditional welder, as you might expect, or the vinyl would just melt into a heap or start on fire. The way they do it is they take the pieces of vinyl, they cut them at a 45-degree angle, and they heat them up. They heat up the edges, and then they jam it together. And when they jam it together, some of the vinyl sticks out the end. They'll typically lose 1/8 of an inch on each piece, so you end up with 1/4 of an inch combined of vinyl just goobed out all over the place. Of course, you don't want to see that. That would look especially ugly. So the very next machine at the plant is called a cleaner. A cleaner will use either a saw or a knife or something sharp to cut that excess vinyl off and make it flat. Most windows try to be as flat as they can, where on these Simonton windows they do these inverted weld where it's a groove. It's recessed down into the sash. I'm not sure how well you can see it here, even though we are shooting in high def. It's a little bit unusual. Based on my manufacturing experience, the only reason I can think they would do it that way is because it's cheaper. The calibration of that cleaner machine is a big deal. If it's off by a little bit, even a 1/16 of an inch, people will see the difference, and you'll get complaints from the field, folks saying, why does this weld look bad, or this one looks different than that one, something's wrong. Really, it just means the calibration of that little saw was off by a 1/16 of an inch, but folks don't like it. So you got to monitor it, you got to test it all the time, you got to make sure you keep it in check. With this one, even feeling this, the groove here versus the groove here is quite a bit different. This is easily a 1/16 of an inch deeper, maybe more than that. And with the inverted weld, it doesn't really stand out. It doesn't look like it's much different than this, which would make it cheaper to manufacture. You could produce them faster, you could check the consistency less often, you would have the machine down less often for maintenance. So that's the only reason I can think they would do it. Does it make a difference to you, the consumer? Maybe not, but it does make these welds stand out. You get kind of stripes on the corners, maybe more than you would typically. I don't know, probably not the end of the world, but makes a bit of a difference. Next thing we'll look at as we open these windows is that it opens kind of weird. You see how it springs up, and you got to sort of push it back down. And I don't know if you're picking up the mic on my microphone here, but it's kind of making a lot of racket as well. The reason it does that is because this model uses what they call a constant force or a coil balance. It looks like a tape measure. It's a rolled up piece of steel that's inside the frame, and it runs down to the bottom, hooks onto the bottom of the sash, and when you open it, that's what keeps it from falling back down. The one in this sample window is a little bit stronger than it's supposed to be, which is why it's lifting up a little more than it should be. It makes it really easy to open, kind of hard to close. Again, it's not a huge deal. It's probably not going to kill you if you get windows like this one with a cheaper balance in it, but if you look at higher end windows, they'll typically use a different type that operates more smoothly, doesn't make so much noise, and works more consistently. So that's sort of a cheap way to do it. So you might be picking up on a theme. You know, they're using the cheaper way to clean these welds. They're using the cheaper way to manufacture those balances. You kind of get the idea here. So the next thing we'll look at is we tilt in these sashes, and they tilt in, you know, for easy cleaning, and everybody goes ooh and ah when the sash tilts in, but you know, Pretty much every window in the world does that nowadays, every new window anyway. You'll see on the sides you've got double weather stripping. So we've got a piece of weather stripping here, and we've got a piece down there if you're hearing that noise. This is called a polymylar fin weather stripping. It's a very popular type, supposed to resist getting squished when it's squished in there for years and years and years and still maintain some of its shape and seal. This one has 2 pieces. Some other models will have 3 or 4 pieces. Don't let yourself think, oh, the model with 4 pieces must somehow be better than the model with 2 pieces. If you start going down that road, you're going to get yourself talked into something you don't need. What do you care at the end of the day if it has 2 pieces of weather stripping, 3 pieces of weather stripping, 15 pieces of weather stripping? It doesn't make a bit of difference. What matters to you is, does it make a tight seal? Does it keep the wind out? Does it keep the cold out in the winter and the heat out in the summer? And the number of pieces of weather stripping might give you some sort of feeling about that, but it doesn't tell you anything. If you want to understand how well a window seals, take a look at the air infiltration ratings. Better is better, worse is worse. Doesn't matter how many pieces of weather stripping it has. For further understanding of how those ratings work, you can check it out on our site at TheWindowDog.com under the Window Ratings tab. So this one actually does have relatively poor air infiltration ratings compared to most newer windows, and it does only have 2 pieces of weather stripping, so would a 3rd piece help it? I don't know, maybe. Couldn't hurt, I guess. While we've got this tilted in, another thing you can see is you've got interlocks on the sash, where you've got this part is the sash, the part that moves up and down. As it's flopped in here, this is the top of the bottom sash, right? When you shut it, this is the top of this bottom sash. On it, you've got a lip right here, and that corresponds to this lip up here. So when this window is shut, those 2 lips are interlocking. And what that means is it drastically reduces the chance of getting a draft through the meeting rail. Meeting rail here where the bottom sash and the top sash meet. If you put your hand up here on your old wood windows, especially when it's cold and windy outside, you'll feel a draft every time. On these, with this interlocking meeting rails, you'll notice substantially less. So almost all new windows do that. Some don't, and they compensate for that with different types of seals in the middle, but it is kind of a nice feature. It does produce solid results. Once we shut this, you'll notice the thing that bugs me about these windows the most. In fact, let me spin that a little so you can see. You look right in here, you see this channel, or this groove. Most windows, especially nicer windows, will have a cover over this groove to keep dust and dirt and stuff like that out. These Simonton windows don't, and the downside to that is when you're cleaning the house, no matter how great a housekeeper you are, you'll have some dust and some junk on these windows over time. And let's say you got the in-laws coming over next week, you're trying to give the house a thorough deep clean. You get up here with your rag and your Windex and you're trying to clean all in here. What's going to happen is you're going to end up banging your knuckles around, you can't get it all clean in there. You're going to end up making streaks because it was a little dusty and now you went in there with a rag, so now there's clean parts and there's dirty parts, and it's a hassle. And if you think from a manufacturing standpoint, how much would it cost to put a balance cover on there, just a little piece of vinyl that snaps in? I bet it wouldn't cost more than a nickel per window, but they don't do it. You think, well, you're spending a couple $100 per window to get your new windows, why wouldn't they spend a nickel to make it nicer? And the only answer I can think of is because they think you don't know the difference. So at least now you do. If that's something that sounds like it would be important to you, keep an eye out for it, and don't buy ones that don't have it. Last thing to look at on the inside is the night latches. These are little spring-loaded jobs, pop out right there, and they prevent that sash from opening more than a couple of inches on the bottom. That's great if you have kids or dogs, and it's bad for burglars, and it keeps them on the outside. Could a burglar smash into this thing and break through it? Yeah, if they wanted to bad enough, but keep in mind if they wanted to break in your house bad enough, they could just break the glass and unlock the window too, so how much are you going to lose sleep over that? I think it's a neat feature. You can also open from the top, and you can slide the screen up to the top, and now you can get some breeze, and it keeps your cat away from the screen, which is a common screen repair cause. So we pop those back in, you just push them back in. We flip this guy around, take a look at the outside. On the outside you'll notice a couple things. One is this half screen that this window has, slides up and down. You can order with a full screen if you want to. The half screen is more common because it opens and closes. You'll notice on this you've got this channel around the edge. This is the channel that goes around the screen track. On this model it looks like it's just kind of stuck on there. It sort of looks like a storm window stuck onto the existing frame. You'll see other windows where it looks a lot more like it's part of the window. Is that something that you would notice after the windows are installed, or you think would affect your feelings about the windows if you bought these? Probably not, but the point of review is to kind of be nitpicky, so if we're being nitpicky on these things, I think that's kind of an ugly design. Something that's a great design, though, are these screens. Let's pop this out. This is a heavy-duty screen from Simonton. A lot of their windows will come with standard with cheap screens, and you can get the heavy-duty screen as an option. So even if you see it on the sample your contractor shows you, make sure it's written on your contract and it's actually on your windows if you want it. A couple reasons the screen is nice. One is it's extruded aluminum, so it's tough as heck. I mean, you can't bend this thing, which is a nice feature. The second one is it has internal corner keys. So the joint at the corner, there's a piece inside, like an L-shaped piece that's in there, but it's completely inside the aluminum frame. So it's protected from the elements, not exposed to the sun. It's not going to get dried and brittle and crack or turn yellow, stuff you'll see on screens. In addition, the spline, which is the rubber part that holds the screen into the frame, on these the spline is on the inside of the house. That does a couple things for you. One is it protects that spline from the sun, which helps it to hold up over time because it is rubber. If it's out there in the sun for 10 summers, it gets dried out and cracked and splits and your screen gets wiggly. We have a whole video on rescreening screens. It's pretty easy. You can see all about how the splines work, but you know, we all have a lot of things to do on Sunday. If you can avoid rescreening your screens, you're probably better off. The second thing the spline does for you, being on the inside, is that it looks prettier. So if you look at the screen from the outside, it just looks a little cleaner this way than it does this way. Is that a huge difference? No, but it's kind of nice. It costs next to nothing. So if it were my house, I would most definitely get these. Moving on. Another thing to look at here is the weep holes, and maybe the last thing we'll cover here. When you kind of get my angle right here so you can see in here, you've got a little drainage holes on the bottom of the frame, both right here and right there. What those are for is design any water gets in through this frame will drain through the frame and out those holes. That's great, except it's a bit of an old-fashioned design. In fact, the #1 warranty call we get for older windows, say windows we installed 5 years or 10 years ago, people will call up and they'll say, oh, my windows are leaking. We'll go out there, we'll look at them. Probably 8 or 9 times out of 10, what we'll see is weep holes that are filled up with junk. You know, spider webs and dirt and cobwebs and leaves, and they're blocked. And then you get a good heavy rain, the water gets in that frame, it can't drain out because the weep holes are blocked, backs up into the house. Well, it's an easy fix. All we do is shove a pipe cleaner up there and clean the thing out. It works fine. But an even better design would be a new window that doesn't have it at all. The way those work, newer models will have a completely welded sill down here. So it's completely sealed. There's nowhere for water to get in. If water can't get in, it doesn't have to get out, and you don't have weep holes. That's a better design. That's the windows we use now, and it's windows most companies use now. But this Simonton's a bit of an older design in that regard. And I say the last thing we could look at here is you've got this step sill, which is kind of a strange design too. Most new windows will have a fully sloped sill where it's just sloped to the outside. This one has a flat surface here and a sloped surface here. I would bet they'll tell you the reason for that is so you can get a tight seal with these 2 big pieces of bulb seal on the bottom. Again, if you look at the ratings, the air infiltration ratings aren't that great with these windows. So is that doing anything for you? I don't know. Maybe it would be worse without it, but it's not very good even with it, so what do you care, right? If you're really worried about air infiltration ratings, I would probably look at another model anyway. So that's kind of the rundown of this puppy. That's the Simonton 5500 Reflections window. Not the greatest window in the whole wide world, but maybe you live in the sticks and you don't have a lot of options. Simonton's very widely distributed. You can find them all over the country, and it wouldn't kill you. But for about the same money, I think you can do a little bit better. So for more information, take a look at TheWindowDog.com, the absolute best source for replacement window information on the entire interweb. You'll find hundreds of detailed replacement window reviews. You'll find comments and feedback from past customers. You'll find information on understanding window sales tactics and replacement window ratings. There is really no better source for information on all of the internet. So check us out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them on the site or drop us a line through the site, and we will get back with you as quick as we can. If you have suggestions for future videos, we'd love to take those into account as well. And now that we're wrapping up, let's see if this puppy bounces. Here we go. Nope.